So previously we have seen some basic routing examples. In this lesson we'll learn more about routes. The type of information users can send to URLs is not limited to strings. We can also pass numbers and floats to GET requests or query strings. In Flask, anything captured in a query string or URL as argument is by default a string unless we specify another type of data explicitly. In our previous example, if we pass a number instead of the string Jonathan, it still displays the number because this number is being treated as a string and not as an integer. Let's now see how to work with different data types. To demonstrate this, I have a series of examples here. Let's go over them one by one. In all these examples, I am simply returning the variable values back to the browser. In the first example, I have a route called /text and within the angular brackets a variable called name. I specified the type of this variable to be string. The function simply returns a variable value back to the browser. When I visit this path and type some value, it gets displayed as expected. And even if I don't specify the data type to be string, it still works because the default data type is always a string. In the next example, I created a route called numbers, and this time the data type of the variable in the angular brackets is integer. This value should take only integers as arguments. Within the function, I am returning this value to the browser. Let's run this and see what happens. Well, we run into a type error because, as I said, query strings always return strings, but we are trying to display an integer instead. To make this work, we need to convert the integer to string before returning it to the browser. As you can see here, this page displays information about the errors. This is one of the uses of the debug option which we have set to true. Let's now fix this error by converting our integer variable to a string in the return statement. And if we refresh the screen, this should work as intended. And if we type a float instead of an integer, this returns a 404 error because the type we defined in the route is integer, but we are trying to pass a float. Entering a text will also return the same error. So in this case, only integers are allowed. You can also see these error messages down below in the terminal. In the next example, I have another route called /add and I am passing two variables, which are again integers. And I am returning the result using the Python's format function. And this format function automatically converts the result into a string. When we run this, there shouldn't be any errors this time. Again, if we pass anything apart from numbers, this also results in error. And finally, I have another route called /product and a function that multiplies two floats and returns the value to the browser. Let's enter two floating point numbers to see this. And sure, we see the product of these two numbers. Again, this works only with floats. Anything other than floats returns a 404 error. So that's about working with strings, numbers, and floats. I hope you now have a decent understanding of how routes work in Flask. In the next lesson, we'll learn about rendering HTML templates. See you soon.